All right, hello, everybody. We're going to be getting started in just a few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and throw up a quick poll just to see where you're at, how you're currently managing your inventory. And then we will get started. Hi, AJ. Hi, Denise. Hi, Yumi. Nice to see you guys. All right, got a couple more people joining in. There is a poll. Also, you can type something in the chat. Let me know that you can hear me. Maybe say where you're from. All right. Okay, we got some people using SewStock. Got a couple people left answering the poll. All right, some people still using Excel. That's very, very common. And something we hope to eventually change is to upgrade everybody's systems as they expand their business. But we're also very happy to provide education for anyone on the subject of inventory management, as well as profitability. I'm talking a lot about profitability nowadays, and specifically profit optimization across the supply chain. So that's something that we're going to be getting into, as well as we've launched a new free tool that I'll talk about a little bit, and some other tools that you can use to increase your profit across the supply chain. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to end the poll. We've got some people using some other software, SewStock, Excel. All right, let's go ahead and jump on into it. If you have any questions, we've got the Q&A feature, and then also you can enter something into the chat. Other than that, I think you all likely know how to use Zoom by now. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. We are recording. Yeah. All right. Okay, so we're going to be talking about up-leveling inventory in 2022. This topic I want to cover specifically, like I said, both inventory management as well as profit optimization. We're going to talk about flexibility and optimizing for profit and how to avoid stockouts and overstocking. Just a little bit about me. First and foremost, my name is Chelsea Cohen. I'm the co-founder of SewStock and have been selling on Amazon since 2014. I've been immersed in Amazon inventory for almost 4 years now, and identified it as something that really, if you didn't get it right, you had a lot of problems in terms of revenue and profitability. So I've spoken to hundreds of 6, 7, and 8-figure sellers. I've written over 50 articles on inventory and supply chain, and I've also been on dozens of podcasts. The number of software users we have is over 1,000, and we're recommended by top masterminds, influencers, agencies, and aggregators. So let's go ahead and talk about the numbers. Let's talk about, we all have this data. We all have the same data. We can get it from Amazon or Shopify or wherever we're getting data from, but are we looking at the data properly? Numbers can lie if we're not analyzing them the right way, and they can lead us to make mistakes, over ordering, under ordering. So we want to jump into how to actually look at your data. First and foremost, you want to look at your data as a daily adjusted velocity. It's not just sales velocity that you're looking at. You're going to be adjusting it to be more honest, to be more true to what's actually going to happen in the future. And to do that, you're looking at averages. You're not looking at total monthly sales. Sometimes people will look at, for example, their Christmas sales, and they'll say, from this date to that date, I sold X number of total units. I'm going to place an order and purchase that same amount for the coming Christmas. However, that doesn't necessarily work if you had a stock out or a massive sales spike because some influencer mentioned you, or you were featured on a morning news show. Those things, if they're not going to repeat themselves, can skew your sales in a dishonest direction in terms of what's going to happen potentially in the future. So you want to account for sales spikes, account for stockouts, and also if you have deep discounts that you don't want to include in your future forecasting, you want to remove those too. So once you have your daily adjusted velocity, you're going to be able to layer on top of that growth trends, marketing plans, etc. Right? So let's do a quick example of why this is so important. Why is daily adjusted velocity so important? For example, let's talk about one of the sellers that came into SewStock. He had a system that he had been using for several years, and that system was another software. He found that that software was making errors and he was continuing to stock out. So he created his own spreadsheet for his best sellers and was using the two together, but was still stocking out even though he had these two systems running. So when he came into SewStock, he wanted to see what the difference was and was surprised to see how high the daily adjusted velocity was. When we dug into the data, we actually found out exactly what was happening. And let me show you the numbers. So first, the algorithm for the other software was estimating that he was selling 8 units a day, and yet midweek he was stocking out on his weekly orders. The spreadsheet that he created said 10 units a day, and he was still stocking out. What we found in actually analyzing the data properly is that he was actually selling 15 units a day, and correcting that helped him to avoid additional stockouts. So there's the ability, once you get these numbers right, to start making more money because you're not constantly stocking out. And the reason why this happens is that you have to answer 2 questions. The first question is, did you have stock? Right? This is something that can be pulled from Amazon's historical API. And if you don't have a link to Amazon's API, you can also track this with a stockout log. Number 2, was there any unusual interruption to your normal sales velocity? This can be several different things. A lower sales day right before you go out of stock, lower sales day right as you come back into stock, Amazon finding a unit or 2 during a stock out when you're used to having all zeros and all of a sudden you see 1 sale on 1 day, or sales interrupted by listing suspensions. Those also need to be factored as a stock out, treated the same way as a stock out. So did you have any of these things? Most of these formulas, these algorithms, are only checking for number 1. Did you have stock? They're not catching these other things, these slow sales days that are anomalies. So let's look at algorithm 1, how they handle stockouts, versus algorithm 3, which is essentially how we handle stockouts. So stockouts, if you looked at the pattern, the daily sales velocity was around 100 units a day. In one scenario, you could count the 0 days, the 0 sales days, as stockouts, and then if there were any sales during those other days, they would be counted as in-stock days. However, what we do is we factor it out. We'll look at a percentage, and the default is about 30%. 30% of your average daily sales. If you're selling 30% or less, so if you're selling 100 on average and you sell 30 or less, then it would be considered a stock out and factored as a stock out. Inside of our system, that's something you can adjust. So if 20% is a better number for you, you can obviously adjust that. But you want to isolate those days that your sales are significantly reduced for some reason. So those days would be factored as stock outs. So the day before you going into a stock out, where you sold 23 units, the day that Amazon found an extra unit where you sold 1 unit, and then the day you came back into stock with 13 units, would all be considered stock outs. Now here's where it gets pretty interesting. When you're actually looking at how the algorithm works, if you're looking at a 30-day average, you would add the entire total sales for that 30 days and then divide it by the in-stock days. In algorithm 1, it's counting 26 in-stock days. The 30-day velocity average is 90 units a day. but the true velocity is 100 units a day because we're factoring that there are only 23 true in-stock days. That's a significant difference. That's 10 units a day difference. If you extend that to 3-4 months worth of orders, that becomes pretty evident that this can lead to stockouts. This can surprise you, especially if you're not tracking in a way that you're placing orders effectively. And that is something that can really skew your in-stock rate. All right, so now that you guys understand the idea of daily adjusted velocity and the basis of your calculations, I wanted to jump into another reason that people can stock out. This is a mistake that people were making even before restock limits, and is something that is continuing to be made by people who are not really coordinated. And what that is, the number one inventory mistake that sellers tend to make is marketing inside of a vacuum. What I mean by that is that your marketing team is not talking to your inventory team. You get an idea that you want to promote a product in a certain way, you go to an event, you see a cool hack, and you start marketing, but you don't vet it out and make sure that you have enough inventory to support that. This is not something that is a mistake that just beginners make. I actually had a client, 8-figure seller, who through an email campaign, an email lightning deal campaign for Mother's Day, and the next month was running out of stock because he didn't vet his inventory against his marketing plan. So because restock limits are so important, it's more important than ever to do this. It's not only stock out, but now we have to be worried about overstocking and about products that are not currently turning enough inventory. So coordinating marketing and inventory is more important than ever. And let's talk about the 5 different reports that should be being used by those teams to become a more effective inventory-minded marketer. All right, here are the vital coordination points. First and foremost, marketing needs to give inventory the marketing plan to vet out before they execute that plan, right? Not after, before they execute that plan. Here is an example, and if you are interested in getting access to this, this is something that you can get at our new link, SewStock.com/tools, and you can download this. This is our inventory-minded marketing planner. And essentially, it's just listing out what that plan is. How should we be looking at the velocity? Should it be a combination of 30, 60, and 90 days? Should it be looking at last year's sales? How are we actually analyzing our velocity? Then it would include trend. So you could have a year-to-date trend. You can have a 10% additional sales growth trend. And that could come, the additional sales growth could come from PPC. So if you thought that you were going to do a campaign and it would increase sales by 10%, you could list this here. And this is something that you would do on a per ASIN basis. This is a report for any of you who are using SewStock. I know we have some SewStock users on the call. This is a report that runs directly in line with our marketing tools inside of the forecasting platform. Then you have a section for lightning deals and really any sales events. You put a date range and how many total units you're going to move or you think you're going to move in excess of your daily sales velocity. Then of course you have seasonality, and seasonality would be a date range, a little bit of a description, maybe it's summer, and the percentage increase or decrease that you think will occur during that time. And we actually have seasonality. We have an update to seasonality that's coming out really, really soon. It's going into beta that will allow you to adjust this on a very, very granular level. Something that you will hear more about very soon. And we look forward to your guys' feedback on that when we do. All right, let's go ahead and talk about inventory. Inventory actually needs to take more responsibility than they currently have been. There's been a passive role that inventory teams have held. It's been an afterthought, especially for people who are solopreneurs working by themselves. it's been one of those, oh shoot, I need to reorder my inventory situations. But as you start to get your systems in place and as you start to grow out your team, it becomes vitally important that you are coordinating these things. And this is really something that will be helpful at any level. And if you are using SewStock, these reports either are built into the system or can be built into the system based on your specific parameters. So the first is the the Stockout risk report. And that looks something like this. You want to indicate the next stockout date. When is this product going to stock out? If this product is going to stock out, when is it going to stock out? For how many days is it potentially going to stock out? How many, this is kind of a bonus, but how many days in the past year has it stocked out? This will help you to identify supply chain issues. And then you can do the total stockout percentage. This report should be used by the marketing team. And the way that it should be used by the marketing team is to decide whether or not to market a product or to back off on marketing. If there's going to be a stock out of, let's say, 7 days, maybe you can turn some of the higher or the lesser performing ads, turn those down and recover some of your margin on those products so that you can avoid a stock out and still make more profit with every single unit you're selling. The formula for anyone not using SewStock, this all happens automatically in SewStock, but if you are not using SewStock, the formula is this: your total amount of inventory divided by your daily adjusted velocity will equal your days of remaining stock. And from that, you can then estimate when you would be out of stock. All right, now you have the slow sellers report. The next 3 reports are going to sound fairly similar, but I'm going to explain the difference and why each of them is important and how they could potentially work together. So the slow seller report includes your daily adjusted velocity, your FBA days of supply, and your days of supply by region. You want to, I call this the move it or lose it SKUs. What you're really looking at is you're looking at a minimum and a maximum daily adjusted velocity range. These are your SKUs. You don't necessarily want to get rid of them, but you know that they're going to become a problem. They're move it or lose it because you either have to make it sell more and increase the sales velocity, or you're going to have to get rid of it eventually, right? It'll become such a dud product that it's going to become a liability. This report is used to see which products need to ramp up sales. The products should be on the marketing plan, right? You get this report, the marketing team should get this report and then use it to inform them as to what to put into their marketing plan. They should ramp up sales on these products. Otherwise, they would risk going into the next report, which is the liquidation report. The liquidation report is just what it sounds like. These are products that you don't plan on restocking. You need to sell through them or remove them from FBA. And what you are looking at is a minimum, just a minimum daily velocity. Anything under, let's say, 5 units a day is going to be considered on the docket for liquidation. This is something that would be helpful for a marketing team to know they have to devise a plan to move this inventory before it becomes a blocker for other inventory at FBA, starts collecting more fees, and becomes an overall problem product. Potentially, you could use this to your benefit. I actually don't recommend simply pulling it from FBA unless you have a restock limits emergency. And restock limits are improving. So we've heard less and less of the problems with restock limits. But the liquidation report should potentially be used as a tool to essentially move these products as quickly as possible. Throw a flash sale, put a coupon on there, do some sort of lightning deal. Even if it loses money, think of it this way. You might be able to boost your restock limits as this product goes out the door. So if you're having restock limits problems, try to sell through this product really quickly and borrow the sales velocity from the product to boost your limits. All right, and now the last report, this is the Overstock Report. There are many SKUs that could end up on the Overstock report that are on those other two reports, the liquidation report and the slow seller report, but best sellers could be on this report as well. It's going to isolate excess inventory held at FBA. And what you want to do is you want to set a maximum number of FBA days of supply. So how much inventory you have in total days. Let's say 90 days, for example, and this should be based on your restock limits. If you have very slim restock limits, this might be less, it might be 60 days of supply. This report is used to help you to isolate a few things. You want to be able to clear space, you want to be able to avoid excess inventory fees, but you can also use it, like I mentioned, to boost restock limits. If you have excess inventory, you can increase the sales velocity, throw a flash sale, and boost restock limits. You can also use it to increase your ranking. It's really great to see a product on the slow sellers report and also the Overstock report, because you need to boost ranking on those slow sellers to get them actually moving at a decent velocity. So if you have Overstock, you basically have an asset to buy yourself more ranking and more restock limits. Think of inventory as either an asset or a liability. It's usually an asset, but it becomes a liability when it costs us more in storage fees than it's actually going to make us in the long run. But if you can kind of separate your mind from the idea that everything has to be financially in the black, if you can't make your money back from the product, at least you can make restock limit increases. All right, let's talk logistics. Logistics flexibility. This is really important to understand. We actually had someone on the last webinar say they applied this system several months ago and have not stocked out since. The point is you need to have multiple different plans and multiple different strategies. You need to have a plan A, B, C, and D, and even E, and we'll talk about what those plans are. The first point is that your golden rule is never let anyone have all your stuff. A lot of times I talk to sellers who have stocked out and I want to know what happened to cause that stock out. And it usually is a violation of never let anyone have all your stuff. I believe I skipped one. Okay, so it's usually a violation of that. This is how you want your system to work. Usually we used to be able to send from supplier to Amazon, everything got checked in, and that was not really a problem. Now you need to adopt a system of having multiple different ways of getting inventory to your customers. First and foremost, you should have excess inventory being held at your supplier. If you have a container, you're ordering a full container, consider ordering an extra 1 to 2 months on top of your full container. Keep it at your supplier's warehouse, and oftentimes they will provide storage for free for a couple of months. And then you put everything on a boat except for that excess inventory. You hope that it arrives on time, but you pay attention to the date. And if it's not going to arrive on time, you can put some of that excess inventory from your supplier onto an airplane. You only want to air freight if it's absolutely necessary, but at least you have that option. You have the inventory that you produced at the beginning of this transaction, and you can send it out. Another thing to potentially negotiate with your supplier is to see if they'll allow you to pay only the 70% or whatever your final payment is, pay the whole payment, initial payment up front, and then the other side of that payment for only what ships out. So your ocean freight, you'll pay only that. The stuff that's being held back in case of an air shipment, you'll only pay for it when you remove it from your supplier's warehouse. And then of course you can send it to FBA, you can send it to your 3PL. Now let's talk about local logistics. The same rules should apply for your local logistics. You should be holding excess inventory at your 3PL, send your truckload. And if your truck doesn't get checked in on time because Amazon decides they're going to wait 5 to 6 weeks to check your stuff in, and we'll talk about why that is and some ways you can start to try to get around that. but you'll want to have your small parcel delivery as an option as well, sending that similar to the way that you would send your air freight. And then lastly, you want to have a fulfilled by merchant situation. You want to have some backup supply that you can fulfill yourself. If Amazon is not going to check your stuff in, you still can take sales on that sales channel and just distribute it through a third-party fulfillment center. So all of these plans need to be in place to be able to be flexible enough for today's current logistics scenarios. All right, so let's get to trucking and to what is happening that inventory is taking so long to check in. We have to have these backup plans, but why? We never used to have this situation before, so what is going on? About 2 years ago, Amazon launched something called Amazon Freight. Many of you probably use it. They also have, in conjunction with that, the Amazon partner carriers that you're all aware of when you make shipments inside of Amazon, and you have Amazon help facilitate that shipping transaction. Basically what they did is they bought a bunch of truck trailers and they own the trailers. So they'll hire trucking companies, independent trucking companies, or independent owner operators, and have them transport the Amazon trailers. Because these Amazon trailers are Amazon's, they drop them off, and Amazon has to tell them, here's what you have to do. You drop it off, you pick up an empty one, and then you do it all over again. The problem with that is that eventually when Amazon gets backed up, they stop dropping them, or they stop having empties for the truckers to pick up. They just sit there and they pile up. And it worked really well for Amazon because they can control the flow, but it doesn't work very well for us when they get backed up and we see, 5 and 6 week check-in times. So the solution, there's actually some ways to get around this. First and foremost, talk to your 3PLs, your freight forwarding reps. They're your best allies. They know what is happening. And what you want to do is you want to ask them for if you are having trouble, right? If you're not having trouble, stick with the Amazon partner carriers. They're cheaper. But if you are having trouble with check-in and it's costing you more money to use FBA partner carriers than it is because you're stocking out, you'll want to ask about companies that will do or will be able to do what's called a live unload. Live unload means that they bring the truck up to the dock and they empty it. It may be a little bit longer to get that delivery appointment than it is with Amazon FBA, but you'll at least know that that delivery appointment is your check-in time within, a day or two will be your check-in time for your inventory. This is all stuff that I learned from 3PL owners that I know. So it's very important to talk to them. If you are having trouble, speak directly to some of these owners or some of these reps and get this information, because all of this could change in 3 months. Maybe Amazon gets their stuff together and all of a sudden they are, the best option for both money and time. Right now, they're the best option for money, but not necessarily time. Make it a habit to reach out and talk to these guys. Next, stop defaulting to your Amazon partner carriers. This is a good strategy, but do know that Amazon, if you're not shipping through Amazon's partner carrier or Amazon's freight services, they're not going to cover any losses. So until it gets to Amazon, you won't get any reimbursements if something gets lost on the way to Amazon. So make sure that your insurance is going to cover any of that for you. And then let's talk about logging trailer numbers. This is a really cool logistics hack that I learned from a 3PL owner. And basically, Amazon can't track your packages. They can't track your shipment if it hasn't been unloaded, meaning that they can't look and they can't see exactly where your shipment is. Is it in this container? Is it in that container? What they can track is they can track trailer numbers. So they know if a trailer is in a specific location. Have your 3PL start tracking trailer numbers And if you have a situation where a trailer gets lost, you can contact them and ask them, given the trailer number, where that is. Usually it's just buried in the yard somewhere, but sometimes it goes to the wrong location. My friend who runs this 3PL, he mentioned that he had a situation where something was supposed to go to Nevada, ended up in California, and they got it, opened it up, and wasn't theirs, so they just shut it up and didn't do anything with it. It kind of sat there. What they had to do is they had to authorize an override to check that inventory into California, even though it was Nevada inventory. So it is important to start this strategy of logging your trailer numbers. If you're shipping something, you're shipping a full container load, and it's very important to you to make sure to track these things. You can also do a GPS tracking device. They're rather inexpensive, but that's something that you would do working directly with your 3PL, and something, if you're interested in doing, to look into. All right, let's dive into talking about profit. This is a subject, like I mentioned, that I'm lately obsessed with. And actually, interesting enough, this is the topic that was what led to SewStock. There's a concept called death by paper cuts, and that's essentially all the little things that are costing you money, everything that's kind of eating away at your profit margin, right? Any little thing that's kind of, all these tiny things add up to a huge negative impact. The opposite of that is a phrase, little hinges move big doors, right? It's important to know how to move those hinges. We're going to talk about some of the hinges that can be moved that can add a lot more to your profit margin and to your bottom line. So let's talk about carton weight optimization really quickly. Some companies, some freight forwarding companies, have begun to charge a minimum weight for every package that they're shipping, non-container shipping, right? So this is something that I noticed last year, and something that greatly impacted one of our shipments. We had to reconfigure things. So let's say the weight was 12 kilograms, and we had 7.7 kilograms, which essentially was 10,000 units. And we were going to be charged as if every one of those cartons was 12 kilograms, even though it wasn't. This was going to mean over $6,000 for this monthly shipment, or if you multiply it over a year, $75,000 per year. It's a significant cost in terms of just weight optimization. Then you have unit optimization. So what we did is we increased the number of units per carton, and that made it heavier, of course. The other thing that it did was to reduce the total number of cartons. So instead of having 417 cartons, we had 250 cartons. This reduced the cost by $600 a month, or $7,000 a year. It's important, if you're doing these optimizations, to make sure you have 7-layer cardboard, because the more units there are, the more shifting around. You want to make sure that that thing is packed very well, and it's not going to start damaging your inventory en route. I'd suggest working with your supplier, your freight forwarder, and your inspection company to be sure that you get this right. And you need to make sure that, when you're doing this, you might want to test it, or you might want to just make sure that it's not going to jostle around too much. All right, then you have adding these all together. The per month savings was almost $7,000 per year. That turns into $82,000. It's a lot of money with just carton optimization. Looking at this, it got me to thinking, how do we know we've got the best carton configuration? Most people are using their supplier to figure out how to build their cartons. If you go to an event, you talk to most sellers, ask them who figured out how many units per carton, who figured out how to build that carton, how much, what is the dimensions of that carton. They'll usually say, oh, my supplier did that. It's not necessarily in your best interest to just let your supplier do that. We actually created a tool. It's called the Master Carton Calculator. And what it does is it looks at your units and it looks at your pallet and it figures out how to build out your perfect carton as well as your perfect pallet configuration to get as many units per carton and as many units per pallet. What that does is that reduces your total number of cartons. And if you're paying $3.60 for each carton that goes through your 3PL, for example, on average, and you're paying for pallet storage, you reduce your pallets, your number of pallets and your number of cartons. It significantly impacts your profitability. You can increase your profit simply by reassessing and realigning your cartons. That master carton calculator, like I mentioned, you go to SewStock.com/tools, give it a try, and hopefully you can recover some savings on your products. Another free tool is called onpallet.com that takes your existing cartons and it will build out your perfect configuration for those existing cartons. Then you have container optimization, a site called peertopeer.com/load-calc, and that will be a tool to help you to optimize your containers. You can put various different carton sizes in there and it will do that calculation for you. All right, let's talk about what these optimizations look like if you were to exit your business. We'll use a 5x multiple since that is fairly standard. We had carton optimization, let's say $82,000 a year. That would, at a 5x multiple, be over $400,000. Let's say pallet optimization saves you $15,000. That would be $75,000 on exit. Air freight, you adopt a system to better get your inventory into Amazon, avoiding air freight, you're tracking your inventory better. That would turn into $250,000. Stockouts, avoiding stockouts by getting your numbers right. $40,000 turned into $200,000. The total annual savings, $187,000 in annual savings that you can put into more marketing, you can put it into new products, or you can just put it into your pocket. On exit, almost $1 million you would be saving. Can you afford to lose that amount of money? It's a significant impact that it can have on your business. My best advice, if you are suffering in your margins, is to start diving into this side of your business. A lot of people try the route of going to suppliers and negotiating fees. And that's been a practice that's been in place for some time, but no one is talking about this aspect. We all know we have to pay, up to $10,000 per container. We are all paying more to 3PL middlemen because of the restock limits. So it's time to start figuring out other ways to recover that profit that's been leaching away and the death by paper cuts that we're all suffering. All right, let's talk about the bombshell that hit in January. And this is the last little bit. This is going to be a further dive into the profitability aspect of your business. Of course, what I'm talking about is dimensional weight calculations. And if you haven't seen this, this may not be affecting your business very, very much. But if you've noticed your fulfillment fees shot up at some point in the end of January, this is probably why. First of all, I want to explain what dimensional weight is. It's essentially combining the space that your product takes up and the weight. And it's looking at those two things and it's pricing it out based on both of those things. The reason that this is important is because a truck can only hold so much space, right? It only has so much space to hold inventory, and it can only have a certain amount of weight in that truck before it becomes dangerous. So those two things need to be assessed to be able to calculate how much of that inventory they can actually get into that truck and deliver. So that's dimensional weight. And the calculation is actually pretty easy. You take unit length multiplied by unit width and unit height. And of course, that's your product unit, not your carton, not your pallet, the unit of your inventory, because this affects fulfillment fees. So you're looking at that combination, unit times width times height, divided by 139, right? It's called the DIM divisor, dimensional weight divisor. You divide it by 139. That's going to give you your dimensional weight. Let's look at an example. We've got a pillow. Pillows are really great to give you an example of this because pillows are very light, yet they can be very bulky. Here's a product that is considered small oversized. It's just over 4 pounds. So Amazon's going to call it 5 pounds. They always round up. And let's do the math. 30 by 20 by 5 divided by 139 is just over 21 pounds. That's going to become 22 pounds. So instead of being charged 5 pounds, you're being charged 22 pounds. Really significant. Fees for this product, and this is a real product that was pulled off of Amazon. Last year, $9.26. It should have been $9.70 this year, but because of this new dimensional weight factor, it becomes $16.16. So you went from what should have been a 4.7% increase to a 74.5% increase in fulfillment fees alone. That doesn't include referral fees or PPC. It's about 60% of your margin, and adding referral fees on top makes 70% to Amazon. And that's before the ad money that you're sending them. Here's what happens if you can reduce the size. This is another product, and they were able to get 4 pillows into 17 by 11.5 by 8, large standard. The product is heavier. It's going to be charged at 11 pounds instead of the 5 pounds that we had for the other product. But the dimensional weight is only 11.25, meaning 12 pounds. 12 versus 11 is a huge difference. So fulfillment fees went from $8 to what would have been $8.50, or a 5.5% increase. With dimensional weight, went to almost $9, but that's only a 9.3% increase as opposed to 74% increase. That's only 22% of the total retail cost. And then with the 15% referral fee, only 37 cents or percent goes to Amazon. All right, that's about it. That kind of wraps up what I wanted to address with you. Sorry, going back. My main message is size matters. It's extremely important to analyze your entire supply chain. Start with, if you can reduce your units, start with units, because when you reduce your units, you're going to have to recalculate your cartons and your pallets anyway. So if you can reduce the unit size, you will be able to essentially start reducing everything. You can get more units per carton, more units per pallet. Use the master carton calculator at SewStock.com/tools. It's even just fun to, if you don't have time to figure all that out and you don't have an order coming up with your supplier, it's even just fun to see what the potential is of your product and just push some numbers in there and kind of see the impact. It'll show you the percentage savings and the dollar amount savings, and it'll break down all of those savings. You'll get a savings report. You'll also get a report or a blueprint, right? A packing blueprint. How should the units fit within the carton? What's the size of the carton, and how should those cartons fit on your pallet? All right, that's all I have to say. I'm going to give you a little bit, for those of you who are not using SewStock, I want to give you a little bit of insight into SewStock itself. We've been around since 2019. We're a fully customizable Amazon inventory software, and we've worked with hundreds of sellers directly to streamline it, to make sure that it works for sellers, that it works for a lot of different scenarios. If you have a complicated inventory system or an inventory workflow, we can likely accommodate that. If we can't, we want your feedback so that we can develop tools to be able to. We also factor in restock limits. We have over 1,000 happy customers. Free data migration is something that we offer when you're moving over. So if you're using another software and you want to come over to SewStock, we'll help you to migrate that data. or if you're just using an Excel spreadsheet, all of that can be migrated over. Your supplier information, your inventory, we can help with all of that. And then we do a one-on-one onboarding call with you. So you know how to use the software, but also you know how to build out your workflow so that it works for you, for your particular business. Here's a couple of the features. Here's our customizable forecasting per SKU. It's like we talked about with the marketing report. All of those things are built into our forecasting. Restock limits. We've got the velocity calculations, being able to remove stockouts and sales spikes. The inventory timeline, which I love, it's actually my favorite feature because it puts a visual on what's happening with your inventory. You can look at a weekly, daily, weekly, or monthly and see what transfers are happening, what sales are running through, what's your sales velocity look like, what's in your warehouse, when is your inventory going to actually arrive. Then you've got the order and transfer tracker. It's a Kanban view of your items in production, your orders that are en route, say by boat or by plane, and then anything that is arriving to your warehouse or checking into FBA. Then you have customizable inventory dashboards. All of those reports that we talked about, the inventory reports that need to go to the marketing team, they can all be built out inside of the inventory dashboards based on your specific needs for your business. And then we have PO and transfer creation. You can monitor, it's basically PO management, transfer management, being able to, with a couple clicks of the button, place your orders based on your forecast and send them off to your suppliers and your warehouse directly from the software. We are on the Amazon App Store, so if you're curious about what other people think about SewStock, you can jump over to the Amazon App Store in Seller Central. We've got forecasting is hands down the most accurate, solved 99% of our inventory forecasting challenges. Someone was able to get rid of their spreadsheets, making much more money by avoiding stockouts, cutting your time down from hours to just a few minutes, and then pushing features constantly. That's something that we drive to do, is pushing features all the time, making sure that we're truly listening to what is actually needed so that we're always building out ways to make things easier, faster, and also help you to recover more of your money and time. We have a free trial. If you go to SewStock.com, you can look for the floater bar at the bottom of the website. We have a 30-day free trial. If you have questions, go ahead and reach out to us. You can reach me at SewStock.com/connect. You'll find a link to all of my socials there, as well as my email. You'll find that we have our tools listed on there as well, a link to our tools, the ability to sign up for a demo, and anything else that you need, you can simply reach out and send me an email. If you do want to friend me on one of my socials, I only ask that you send me a message as well, because I get a lot of people contacting me and I want to make sure that I know who you are. So, send me a friend request or something like that, and then say hi, send a quick message. All right, that's all I have for you guys. Let me know if you have any questions. I know that it's a lot. This will be recorded, or is being recorded. So I will go ahead and send it out on the replay. Do check out those tools. Give me feedback. Let me know what you think about the carton calculator. We're always making updates. In fact, we launch a tool and then we say, how can we make it even better? So we are doing additional updates to our tools all the time. And if you have an idea for a tool and you would like someone to create it, especially if it's something that is not easy to do inside of a spreadsheet, send me a message, let me know, because we are doing more free tools. And eventually those tools will all be integrated into SewStock. But at the moment, our calculator is a free tool that is available to everybody right now. All right, I think that's it. Thank you guys so much. This was a fast one. So have a fantastic rest of your week and hope to see you on the next one. All right, bye.